Returning to Josh and Sarah's journey. Today, they are finally sharing their first meal in the home that cost them 3 years of sacrifice. There is no champagne, no celebratory feast, just a humble pot of chicken soup. Outside their window, the first signs of winter are beginning to settle over the town. But as they sit in the warmth of their new kitchen, there's an unspoken weight in the air. They've secured their shelter, but the world outside is changing. Prices are climbing, and that bowl of soup, it feels a little different than it used to. To understand why, we have to look at the very bowl in front of them. Imagine for a moment that the entire economy is one giant pot of soup. Think of the economy as a massive pot of soup. The nutrients, the meat and the vegetables, represent real value. The homes we live in, the technology we use, the clothes we wear. The water in that pot? That's the money. And your labor, your sweat, your precious time, that is the spoon you use to reach in and claim your share. Josh and Sarah have spent years building bigger spoons, working longer hours, and sacrificing weekends just to scoop enough for Emma's future. But they are fighting a losing battle. Whenever the managers of the pot need to cover a mistake or fulfill a promise they can't keep, they don't add more meat. They simply turn on the tap and pour in more water. The pot looks full. The numbers in the bank accounts grow. But when you reach in with your spoon, no matter how big it is, you're mostly scooping up water. The nutrition is gone. The value of your hard work has been diluted by the very liquid meant to carry it. This is the paradox of our time. Josh looks at his spoon and sees it's still full. But why is he still hungry? Why does it take 10 hours of work today to buy what 8 hours bought just a few years ago? It's because the soup is being watered down. And if you're just holding a spoon, you're losing the race against the tap. The ice is beginning to melt, and the water level is rising. For families holding only cash, the flood is already at the doorstep. But Josh and Sarah are choosing a different path. They are building themselves an inflation boat. A vessel crafted not from devaluing paper, but from real, undeniable scarcity. This is the path they are taking. This is how they will ensure that when Emma grows up, she won't be left fighting the flood. She'll be the one sailing above it. Chapter 1: The Origin of the Tap, 1971, and Digital Alchemy. To understand why the water level is rising in Josh and Sarah's soup pot, we have to look at the plumbing of the global economy. For a long time, the soup had a strict, unchangeable recipe. Every ladle of soup, every dollar, was anchored to something real. It was backed by gold. This was the gold standard. It meant that the government couldn't just pour water into the pot whenever they wanted. If they wanted more soup, they had to find more gold. It was a system of discipline. It protected the nutrition in the bowl of every hard-working family. But on a Sunday night in August 1971, the rules of the game changed forever. Facing rising debts and a struggling system, President Richard Nixon announced that the United States would temporarily suspend the dollar's link to gold. In that moment, the anchor was cut. The recipe was discarded, and a giant, invisible tap was installed directly over the global soup pot. The era of hard money ended, and the era of the unlimited tap began. Today, the managers of that pot, the Federal Reserve, don't even need physical ink and paper to keep the water flowing. They use a process called quantitative easing, or QE. Think of it as digital alchemy. With a few keystrokes, the central bank creates billions of dollars out of thin air. They use this new water to buy government debt, flooding the banking system with liquidity. The goal is to keep the economy moving, to keep interest rates low, and to encourage spending. But there is no free lunch. Every time they turn that digital tap to save the system, they are diluting the value of every dollar Josh has saved. They aren't creating wealth. They are moving the goalposts, while Josh and Sarah are still running the race. For the elites at the top, this new water is a tool for growth. But for a young family in Ohio, it's the reason their ice is melting. To understand why the rich seem to get richer during a crisis, while families like Josh and Sarah work harder just to stay in place, we have to follow the flow of the water. We have to talk about who gets to drink from the tap first. Chapter 2. The Cantillon Effect. Who gets to eat first? London, May 1734. A wealthy merchant's house in Albemarle Street goes up in flames. Inside, the charred remains of a man are found. But this was no accident. The victim was Richard Cantillon, a man who had grown fabulously rich by predicting the collapse of the world's first great financial bubbles. He died shortly after publishing a manuscript that revealed the dirty secrets of how the elite steal from the poor. Many believe he was murdered to keep those secrets buried. To understand why Josh and Sarah are struggling today, we have to look at what Cantillon saw 300 years ago during two of the most infamous frauds in history: the Mississippi Scheme in France and the South Sea Bubble in England. Cantillon wasn't just a witness, he was a master player. He watched as central banks and kings flooded the markets with paper credit, promising riches to everyone. He saw how this new money first enriched the friends of the crown, the bankers and the politicians, allowing them to buy up land, gold, and real assets at yesterday's prices. But he also saw the aftermath. As the paper money flowed down to the common people, prices skyrocketed, and the currency lost its soul. By the time the peasants entered the market, the insiders had already cashed out, leaving the public holding worthless paper. Cantillon realized that money is not a neutral mist. It is a river of power, and your position along that river determines whether you thrive or drown. He called it the Cantillon Effect. He proved that those closest to the tap, the source of new money, harvest the wealth, while those at the edges of the empire pay the ultimate price through inflation. He died for these insights, but the mechanism he discovered didn't die with him. Fast forward to today. The king is now the Federal Reserve, and the money is created with a single keystroke. When the Federal Reserve decides to inject liquidity into the economy, they don't actually print paper bills and drop them from helicopters. It's far more surgical than that. The process is called open market operations. The Fed creates digital money out of thin air and uses it to buy government bonds and mortgage-backed securities from the world's largest commercial banks. Think about that. In 2020 alone, the Fed's balance sheet expanded by roughly $3 trillion in just a few months. That's $3 trillion created by clicking a mouse. This massive wave of new money hits the big banks first. Now flush with cash, these institutions don't wait for it to trickle down to Josh and Sarah's local bank. They immediately put that money to work. They lend it to hedge funds, private equity firms, and billionaire investors. This early money rushes into the asset markets. It buys up stocks. It buys up thousands of single-family homes. This is why, during the peak of the 2020 crisis, the S&P 500 hit record highs, while the unemployment rate was skyrocketing. By the time this money finally reaches Josh in the form of a small raise, or Sarah as a cost of living adjustment, the damage is already done. The institutional early birds have already bid up the price of the very house Josh and Sarah were saving for. In the last decade, U.S. house prices have outpaced wage growth by over 60%. The Cantillon Effect is the reason why. Those closest to the digital tap get to buy the future at yesterday's prices, while everyone else is forced to buy the past at tomorrow's prices. Today, we live in two different worlds. Families like Josh and Sarah are taught to love savings and fear debt. But the ultra-wealthy do the exact opposite. They hate holding cash, and they love holding debt. Why does a billion-dollar loan make a tycoon richer, while a modest savings account makes you poorer? How does the same inflation that is drowning your family become the golden wind in their sails? Chapter 3. The Debt and Asset Game. Turning the wind in your favor. To understand why the ultra-wealthy are addicted to debt, while the average person fears it like the plague, we have to look at a high-level financial strategy known as buy, borrow, die. Imagine two neighbors, Mr. Saver and Mr. Billionaire, who both want to buy a $10 million yacht. Mr. Saver follows traditional advice. He works hard, saves his cash, and pays the full $10 million up front. While he is officially debt-free, he has effectively wiped out his liquidity and killed his opportunity cost. That money is no longer invested or growing. Instead, it's tied up in a yacht that loses value every single day. On the other hand, Mr. Billionaire keeps his $10 million invested in stocks. If he sold those stocks to buy the yacht, he would be hit with a massive capital gains tax, potentially losing 20% to 30% of his wealth to the IRS. Instead, he uses those stocks as collateral to take out a low-interest loan from a bank. By borrowing at a 3% interest rate rather than paying a 30% tax, he saves millions of dollars instantly. His original $10 million continues to grow in the market, often outperforming the cost of his loan, meaning he's effectively getting paid to borrow money. The fundamental difference here is the distinction between bad debt and good debt. Most people are trapped in bad debt, borrowing for consumer goods like cars, clothes, or electronics that depreciate in value, turning them into slaves to high interest rates. The elite, however, utilize good debt as a lever to keep their appreciating assets intact while dodging taxes legally. The cycle concludes with the die phase. When the billionaire passes away, current U.S. tax laws allow for a step-up in basis. Let's say a billionaire bought stock in a tech giant 30 years ago for just $1 million. Today, those shares are worth $1 billion. If they sold them while alive, they'd owe the IRS hundreds of millions of dollars in capital gains taxes. But by holding that stock until they pass away, the step-up in basis rule kicks in. The IRS officially resets the cost of that stock from its original $1 million to its current $1 billion value for the heirs. When the family sells the stock the next day to pay off the billionaire's lifestyle loans, the government sees zero profit on the sale. A tax bill that should have been $200 million or more simply vanishes into thin air, allowing the fortune to pass down to the next generation completely untouched. Chapter 4. The $100 Boat. Building your inflation shield. So, how do you actually build this inflation boat when you're starting with small capital? It begins by fundamentally changing how you view a home. Instead of waiting decades to save the full purchase price, you should look at a mortgage as your ultimate shield against inflation. When you secure a low-interest loan to buy property, You are effectively letting the bank shoulder the risk of a devaluing dollar while you hold on to the physical, scarce land. However, this strategy only works if you master the golden rule of debt management. You must ruthlessly distinguish between junk debt and smart debt. Junk debt, like credit cards or high-interest loans for the latest iPhone, is a trap that burns your future wealth because the interest rate will always outrun inflation. Smart debt, on the other hand, is a tool used for education, business, or real estate. Investments where the growth of the asset's value, or the profit it generates, is guaranteed to outpace the cost of the loan. You don't need to outsmart the market to win. You just need to own it. By consistently putting even 10% to 20% of your income into index funds like the S&P 500 or truly scarce assets like gold and Bitcoin, you are essentially buying a piece of the world's most powerful money-printing machines. When the Fed prints more currency and major corporations raise their prices, the value of your shares and hard assets rises right along with them. Finally, think about your legacy the way the elite do. Instead of selling your property in your old age to give your children cash that will only lose its purchasing power, pass the asset itself down as an inheritance. This allows your family to utilize that step-up in basis we discussed, preserving the full value of your life's work for the next generation. At the end of the day, the biggest difference isn't how much money you have in your wallet, but what you actually own. In a world where paper currency can be printed without limit, your only path to true security is to own the things that are finite. At the end of the day, we have to ask ourselves a haunting question. What are we truly trading our lives for? Life is breathtakingly short, yet we spend the vast majority of our waking hours chasing pieces of paper that the system can and will print into insignificance. To the poor, money is a master to be served out of fear. To the rich, it is a tool to be used for freedom. But if we spend our entire existence running a race where the finish line moves further away every year due to inflation, are we ever truly living? Or are we just trading our finite time for infinite paper? True peace doesn't come from having the most. It comes from owning your time and finding a deep, quiet satisfaction in the assets you've built, the ones that stand firm while the currency around them melts away. Look back at Josh and Sarah. They spent years obsessed with accumulating wealth, only to realize that their greatest, most precious asset was right in front of them all along: little Emma. Their mission shifted. They weren't just saving pennies anymore. They were building a launch pad. They wanted to give Emma a foundation so solid that 20 years from now, she won't be forced to breathe the suffocating air of financial anxiety. She won't have to wonder why the world feels so expensive, because her parents had the foresight to trade devaluing paper for permanent sovereignty. They aren't just leaving her money. They are leaving her a head start in a world that tries to keep everyone at the starting line. But every journey to freedom has its shadows, and I want to hear about yours. How have you started building your own inflation boat to protect your family's future? And just as importantly, what wolves have you encountered along the way? We've all seen the traps, the too good to be true schemes, and the outright frauds that prey on our desire for security. Drop a comment below and share the scams or pitfalls you've faced on your path. Your stories might just become the raw material for our next deep dive. where we'll peel back the curtain on a staggering 800-year history of financial deception to learn how the game of the steal has evolved. Thank you for watching, for protecting your legacy, and I'll see you in the next one.